This episode is about the number 20 team on the Juggernaut Index, the Chicago Bears. When you arrive home from the store with your new Mike Martz offense, the first thing you'll notice is that it's packaged in a really big box. The playbook is several hundred pages long. It weighs 6 pounds. Alex Smith has described it as never-ending. The next thing you'll notice are the grim warning labels. Manufacturer assumes no responsibility for interceptions, rushing yards, damaged quarterbacks. The instructions are absurdly detailed and the parts list seems incomplete. There's no traditional fullback, no pass-catching tight end. There's no indication anywhere that a gunslinging quarterback is needed or even desired. The system relies entirely on timing, protection, passing accuracy, quick decisions, perfect route running. It's loaded with 4 receiver sets and 7-step drops. If you're the Chicago Bears, it should immediately become clear that this thing is going to be rather difficult to assemble with the pieces currently at your disposal. Not impossible, but definitely tricky. This is a curious match of system and personnel. Here's quarterback Jay Cutler describing his responsibilities in the Martz scheme during an interview with the Chicago Sun-Times. In the West Coast offense, you can see the open man and let it fly. But this system is total trust. You have to trust the receivers. You have to trust the call. You have to trust the spots. If you don't let it fly when it's supposed to, it's going to be an interception. You have to take your 7 steps. You identify your coverage and let the ball go. The receiver is supposed to be there. Atop the Bears' depth chart at receiver, we find a pair of kick returners, Johnny Knox and Devin Hester, and a practice squad vet who's now with this 15 in 5 seasons, Devin Aromashadu. Those are the wideouts who are supposed to be there at the conclusion of precise, perfectly choreographed routes. Behind those 3, Earl Bennett, Rasheed Davis, and Joaquin Iglesias are waiting. It seems foolish to completely write off any of the number 4 to 6 receivers here. Martz has transformed ordinary wideouts into fantasy starters before. Think Mike Furry in 2006. If Knox and the Devins can't master the system, they'll lose snaps. Of course, Hester and Knox can absolutely fly, and Aromashadu was a late season revelation in 09. In Week 16, Antoine Winfield couldn't have stopped him with a taser and a giant net. There's clear fantasy upside with each player, and none of the 3 carry a frightening ADP. Do yourself a favor and draft one of them, because the Bears' offense should be endlessly entertaining, even if it's not a clinic at all times. The safest of these wideouts is likely Aromashadu. The highest ceiling belongs to Knox, 4.34 speed, 6 TDs as a rookie, and the big contract is Hester's, 4 years, $41 million. If you're worried about the possibility that this team can't support 3 ownable wide receivers in fantasy terms, here's an interesting Martz fact provided by Doug Farrar via Bears Report. In 2008, the 49ers ran formations with 3 receivers 61% of the time, good for 7th in the league, and 4 or more receivers 24% of the time, which was good for 2nd in the league. The 2006 Lions numbers were very similar, 61% of the time with 3 receivers, 21% with 4. If history is any guide, then 3 additional things will be undoubtedly true about the Bears' passing game in 2010. Greg Olsen won't have a serious role, Cutler will continue to throw picks, and the quarterback will get sacked beyond the limits of human endurance. Tight ends simply haven't been a major part of this attack, at least as receiving weapons. Martz generally prefers to use them as inline blockers, which helps explain the signing of Brandon Manueliuna, 5 years, $15 million. And even the most faithful Martz devotees will concede that interceptions and sacks are basically part of the game script. Check out this system's dark side. 08 Niners, 55 sacks, 19 interceptions. 07 Lions, 54 sacks, 22 interceptions. 06 Lions, 63 sacks, 22 interceptions. 05 Rams, 46 sacks, 24 interceptions. 04 Rams, 50 sacks, 22 interceptions. 03 Rams, 43 sacks, 23 interceptions. 02 Rams, 46 sacks, 27 interceptions. And by the way, every stat that I've already said was ranking in the top 10 in that various stat. Continuing. 01 Rams, 40 sacks, 22 interceptions. 2000 Rams, 44 sacks, 23 interceptions. 99 Rams, 33 sacks, 15 interceptions. Okay, so there wasn't really a dark side to the Rams in 99. That team was awesome. But in every other season in which Martz has directed an offense, even in the great years, His quarterbacks have sustained a beating and they've thrown an uncommon number of picks. It's almost unavoidable in such a high-volume passing game, particularly when so much is demanded from the offensive line. This would seem like the appropriate time to mention that the Bears' line is no better than a league average unit on its best days, despite the presence of six-time Pro Bowler Olin Kreutz. Cutler is one of the most physically talented quarterbacks in the game. But again, this offense is built on trust, timing, and precision. He could play at an extremely high level in 2010, yet still throw 22 picks and get dropped 50 times. Thus, when evaluating Cutler in fantasy terms, your scoring format is everything. We know he'll pile up touchdown passes. He threw 27 in a much more conservative offense last season. But we should also assume a large number of negative plays. If your league awards 6 points per touchdown pass and doesn't penalize severely for turnovers, then Cutler may very well finish in the top 5 at his position. But if you're playing in a format that offers 4 points per touchdown and deducts 3 for interceptions, he could very well finish 20th. Know your settings, draft Cutler, or don't accordingly. The Chicago running game will not in all likelihood lead your fantasy team to anything but despair. Matt Forte is coming off a disastrous season relative to his fantasy IDP. He rushed for just 3.6 yards per carry and 58.1 per game, while reaching the end zone just 4 times on 315 touches. When the Bears approached the goal line last year, Forte became even less effective. Here's another dose of Mr. Farrar. The 09 Bears didn't just rank last in the NFL in red zone DVOA, negative 44.8, which is almost twice as bad as the 31st ranked Rams, but Matt Forte put up the worst expected performance numbers in the 10-year range of our numbers. Given the situations Forte was put in near the goal line, the league average running back would have been expected to score 7.65 touchdowns in a 16-game season. This isn't at all surprising to Bears fans, nor to Forte owners. He scored only 2 touchdowns on 19 carries inside the 5-yard line in 09. Forte was, of course, a fantasy star in his rookie season, thanks largely to 379 total touches. But as an actual NFL talent, he appears to be just another guy. He still has an average 4.0 yards per carry over a full season, and it may not happen this year. He certainly looks like a runner who needs an outstanding O-line and an old-school lead-blocking fullback. In Chicago's offense, he'll have neither. Don't be surprised if he loses short yardage responsibilities to BYU rookie Harvey Unga. The Bears also signed 30-year-old Chester Taylor to a 4-year, $12.5 million deal in March with $7 million guaranteed, further complicating the workload situation for Forte. Even though Taylor's best years are behind him, 3.6 yards per carry in 09, he's a capable receiver who will no doubt earn a significant share of the touches. In PPR leagues, this backfield will deliver a few useful games, but Chicago's running backs clearly aren't ideal fantasy starters in standard formats. At Forte's current mock draft central price, ADP of 42.8, I'll never own him. We conclude in typical Juggernaut Index fashion with the defense. This unit was often horrible last year, particularly in losses to Cincinnati and Arizona. Lovie Smith's squad allowed 23.4 points and 337.8 yards per game, ranking in the bottom half of the league in both categories. However, there are reasons to be moderately hopeful. Linebacker Brian Urlacher will return from a wrist injury that cost him nearly all of 2009, and Pro Bowler Lance Briggs is still in the team's picture. The Bears also signed Julius Peppers to a massive deal in the offseason, and they reacquired Chris Harris, the DB, not the fantasy expert, via draft in April. These players are all IDPs of interest, as is safety Danielle Manning. Chicago's team defense deserves a look in fantasy leagues, but understand that the NFC North is loaded with offensive firepower, and the Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants are on the schedule too. And that's a wrap, gamers. This was the most difficult Juggernaut Index of all. If you believe the 2010 Bears deserve a more optimistic spin, then by all means, give it to us in the comments. Or let's just share some Noah Jackson memories. The floor is now yours.